Finally, there's a known suspect in the mysterious murder of the legendary hip-hop artist Tupac Shakur. On a brisk morning in March 2025, the long shadow cast by one of hip-hop's most haunting mysteries began to inch into the harsh glare of a Las Vegas courtroom. Duane Keffe D. Davis, once a muscled gang leader from Compton, now in his 60s and shackled behind bars, awaited the start of the trial that prosecutors claimed would finally provide answers to the world. Did he mastermind the drive-by shooting that killed Tupac Shakur on the Las Vegas Strip nearly 30 years ago? Please subscribe and watch till the end as we uncover the hidden truth behind the death of Tupac in 1996, a legacy of violence and silence. It all began on September 7, 1996. Tupac Shakur was riding in a BMW driven by Marion Suje Knight, rolling through the neon-lit streets of Paradise, Nevada, when gunshots erupted from an adjacent white Cadillac. Moments later, Tupac was struck by 4 bullets in his chest, thigh, and arm, fired from a .40 caliber Glock. He slipped into a coma, fighting for life for 6 days in the hospital before succumbing to death at age 25. In the aftermath, the case grew cold. The presumed shooter, Orlando "Baby Lane" Anderson, a Compton Crip, died in 1998. Few stood accused, and the murmur of conspiracy rang through the hip-hop world. But no one was ever convicted. That is, until Duane Davis's life story rekindled scrutiny. Davis, Anderson's uncle, had long spoken publicly, in interviews in his 2019 memoir, Compton Street Legend, about his presence in the Cadillac, offering chilling detail. He admitted to having given a .40 caliber handgun to Anderson, from which the fatal shots might have come. For years, many dismissed his tales as bravado or self-promotion. But to prosecutors, they became the key to finally building a case: the indictment and arrest. In September 2023, Las Vegas authorities made their move. They arrested Davis near his Henderson, Nevada home. The grand jury indicted him for first-degree murder with a deadly weapon. Davis pleaded not guilty. The arrest made headlines around the world. The first real, tangible development in the Tupac case in decades. But just because the case was reopened didn't mean it would be easy. Pre-trial battles, immunity, delay, and defense strategy. Almost immediately, Davis's legal team, led by veteran attorney Carl Arnold, launched a fierce pretrial offensive. They filed a motion to dismiss, arguing that Davis had previously been granted immunity by both federal and local authorities when he confessed in 2008. According to Arnold, these past agreements were not honored, and proceeding with a trial now violated the integrity of the justice system. Arnold also highlighted a constitutional dimension. The 27 years delay between the crime and the prosecution, he argued, irreparably harmed Davis's right to a fair trial. Witnesses had died, memories had faded, physical evidence had gone missing. But in early 2025, Judge Carly Kearney rejected the motion. She found no convincing evidence that the delay was intentional or amounted to a violation of due process. That decision seemed to open the path for a March 2025 trial, originally scheduled for March 17th. Yet as the date approached, Davis's team again asked for a postponement. A motion filed in February laid bare their concerns. A private investigator had identified new witnesses who would, they claimed, testify that Davis was not even in Las Vegas on the night of the shooting. They also suggested other parties more culpable than Davis, raising the specter of alternative masterminds. In a terse ruling, Judge Kearney agreed to delay. The trial was rescheduled for February 9, 2026, ensuring both sides had more time. Prosecutors to shore up their case, the defense to prepare fully. Prosecutors painted a chilling portrait of Davis as more than a foot soldier. They accused him of being the architect, the shot caller, who orchestrated the plot from the shadows. Their case leaned heavily on Davis's own admissions. In interviews and in his memoir, he openly discussed supplying weapons, knowing which Crip members were involved, and coordinating logistics. Detective work by investigators, including former LAPD detective Greg Kading, lent weight to the prosecutor's narrative. Kading, once part of a task force probing both Tupac's and Biggie's deaths, had written that Davis confessed to involvement and named Anderson as the shooter. According to Kading, The motive was deeply rooted in gang rivalry. The South Side Compton Crips, with which Davis was affiliated, and Death Row, Suge Knight's domain, were opposed, and tensions had escalated after an earlier brawl at the MGM Grand involving Anderson and Tupac. The prosecution also underscored the weapon. They claimed the same .40 caliber Glock Davis admitted handing over ended up being used in the drive-by shooting. Forensic experts, ballistic reports, and re-examinations of crime scene evidence formed a core pillar of their argument. Alongside compelling witness statements, they sought to dismantle the narrative of a cold case gone stale. The defense's counterattack, alibi, alternative suspects, and motive to lie Davis's defense team labored to reframe the story. Their new witnesses, they argued, would firmly place Davis somewhere else on that fateful night. Not in a white Cadillac drifting alongside Tupac's BMW, but far away in a different city entirely. They insisted that his earlier confessions were not admissions of guilt, but fabrications, part of a persona he had built over decades. Part street legend. Indeed, Davis claimed that many of his most sensational tales were done for entertainment purposes and to make money. Perhaps most explosively, the defense fingered someone else entirely. In their filings, they accused Reggie Wright Jr., former head of Death Row Records Security, of orchestrating Tupac's assassination. They claimed Wright had motive, means, and opportunity, and that multiple witnesses, now being located by private investigators, would testify in support of this alternative theory. They also challenged the integrity of the document trail. The defense argued that many of the files, police reports, investigative notes, came from decades ago and had deteriorated, been lost, or manipulated. The passing years, they said, were not just a delay but an active erosion of truth, the cultural and emotional weight of the case. Outside the courtroom, the trial carried a symbolic weight far beyond any individual's guilt. Tupac Shakur remains a towering figure in music and culture, his influence stretching beyond his death, fused into the very soul of hip-hop. For his family, friends, and fans, this trial represented a long-awaited moment of accountability. There was also a delicate balancing act for the justice system. On one hand, prosecuting Davis now, nearly 3 decades later, spoke to the principle that no crime is immune to time. On the other, the defense's argument raised profound questions. Does delayed justice still mean just justice? Were decades-old confessions reliable? Could a man's celebrity and self-mythologizing distort the truth? Media coverage was relentless. Reporters circled the courthouse, noting the contrast between the aging former gang lord and his youthful image in old photographs. Analysts replayed Tupac's final interview clips, while fans mourned the frailty of memory among key witnesses. Civil rights advocates raised concerns about prosecutorial overreach or the potential of a trial driven more by public spectacle than pure fact-finding. Key players on the stand: Duane, Keffe D. Davis, the centerpiece. His own words may be his greatest weapon and his greatest vulnerability. If his memoir and interviews are true reflections, they reveal intimate knowledge of the shooting. If he is lying now, they could be the rubble upon which the prosecution builds its case. Orlando Baby Lane. Anderson. Already deceased, his ghost looms large. As the nephew of Davis, alleged to have fired the shots, his role is central in every reconstruction, yet he never lived to face justice. Greg Kading. The former detective whose work rekindled the investigation. His testimony is likely to be pivotal. He has both institutional credibility and first-hand insight. Reggie Wright Jr., the defense's proposed mastermind. If their claim holds, Wright's involvement could rewrite much of the popularly accepted narrative. Expert witnesses, forensic ballistics experts, medical examiners, and perhaps even re-evaluated hospital records from Tupac's final days. Every expert could tip the balance. The private investigators Davis's defense has employed claim to have located people previously unqueried, individuals who might challenge the very belief that Davis was present. A trial rescheduled, but not derailed, though originally slated for March 2025, the trial's postponement to February 2026 underscored the complexity of this case. Judge Kearney's decision to grant the defense more time was not a dismissal. It was an acknowledgement that even cold cases must be handled with rigor. The judge called for a status hearing in summer 2025, demanding updates on both sides' investigations. The message was clear. This would be no rubber stamp prosecution. The court insisted that both prosecutors and defense leave no stone unturned. The stakes and the legacy. What is on trial in this case is not just a man, but a myth. Duane Davis's life has been an intersection of gang betrayal, self-invention, violence, and regret. For some, he is a cautionary tale, a man who turned his life into legend. For others, a villain who may finally be held accountable. For the Shakur family and his legacy, a conviction could bring closure, however bitter. For hip-hop culture, it could mean that the long shadow of 1996 begins to lift, a reminder that death, fame, and violence were once deeply entangled, but perhaps not forever beyond the reach of justice. Yet the defense's battle is not merely legal. They challenge the narrative with fundamental questions. How reliable is a confession made years ago? Are stories shaped by memory or by motive? Can justice delayed remain justice denial? Awaiting the verdict, as court reconvenes in early 2026, the world watches, not just for a verdict, but for well-deserved justice. Whatever the outcome, the trial of Duane Keffe D. Davis promises to be more than a legal reckoning. It is a cultural confrontation with the ghosts of the past, the price of legend, and the long, difficult pursuit of truth. Do you think Tupac will finally get justice in 2026? Or it would be delayed further? Thank you for watching this far, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Also comment your thoughts. Like and share to others. Thank you.